we can't really talk about this conversation without referencing just how dramatic an impact the pandemic has had on digital transformation. So just a couple of quick stats here for you. The study revealed that just under 2/3, 64%, so still very, very big percentage of organizations. These companies were already in the process of undergoing some aspect of digital transformation. So that gives you an idea of, we were down this road anyway. However, just over 2/3, at 67%, they've stated that their digital transformation process was accelerated as a direct result of COVID-19. There's no denying that almost every, this is anecdotal, but every organization that I've spoken to that has a field service operation has at some point invested heavily and accelerated that and put those programs really to the fore to try and find ways through and innovate our ways out of crisis. Marc, I'd really like to hear your point from a technologist point of view and understanding how these shifting sands have changed the digital transformation landscape. Because we've been talking about digital transformation, you and I, for how many years, and suddenly we're seeing all of that coming together. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things for sure that we see, and as an industry, we've been probably pretty fortunate that, as far as timing of where these things have hit. The reality is a lot of what we need to make it through and change and innovate, a lot of that, as you pointed out, have been seeds of foundation that have been in place for a while, right? And so it's a matter of accelerating adoption and then changing the way that you work to be able to utilize that new insights that's coming through it. So to some degree, it's been fortunate that we haven't had to completely start from scratch, right, on some of these technologies that we're able to do. That many of the seeds have been planted, many of the ideas have been talked about, and so it's all something that is somewhat coming from a consistent knowledge base of what it is, what it takes to do, and what's the concept of how to utilize that. I think one of the things that we see, even though, and as you pointed out, a large percent, a majority, or close to a majority, people already had significant digital transformation programs in place. And what we found is that it's an acceleration of those digital transformation programs that happened due to the pandemic, right? And so, I think that further crystallizes that point of the fact that a lot of these things were already there, and we kind of understood or had a good, we knew we were wanting to adopt it. It's just a question of when and how fast. Now, what I will say that I think that the challenge still is, committing to adopting is step one, but then being able to truly have the infrastructure to take on some of the new technologies and then be able to change your process to take advantage of that new technology is still a heavy lift, right? There's a lot of work to be done in our industry to be able to fully start to take advantage of the technologies. What we do, though, have is a path forward, and a path that allows us to be able to address many of the challenges that a pandemic like this has created. And the reality is these were changes that we as an industry saw the need for in the future. It's just a question of how quickly that future presented itself for us to be able to take that adoption. But once again, I don't want to understate the challenge associated with getting to that future state. We've already said multiple times, it's a maturity process. And what we've really done is just jump started that maturity process, but you can't, not that you can't accelerate the maturity process, you can make that happen quicker, but it still is a process. We say it's a maturity process because it's exactly that. It's a process you have to go through. You have to go through from a technology adoption standpoint, from a data understanding and adoption, and then a process transformation standpoint, and then a work process change that needs to take place as well. Those things take time and they take investments. And so, what I would say with regard to digital transformation is that almost every service provider is at a different level of maturity of where they are in digital transformation. Some service providers are still in early stages of getting to just field service automation and getting everything in a way that begins to digitize that basic element of field service delivery, and others are in more advanced stages of that. But what is critical is to have the underpinnings of a system that can support that growth and evolution. And certainly, from our perspective, from a FieldAware perspective, we kind of take a field service hub approach to these things, where we like to be able to provide a technology platform that allows organizations to kind of mature at their pace and at the market pace that's required for them, but be able to bring in best of breed capabilities. And so I think that's what we see with regard to IoT and these other types of services that we'll continue to talk about, is that there's a need to be able to add that on, but it's not it's not a step change. It's an incremental change to the core foundation of what field service management really is. And you need to be able to, to be able to bring that hook in and then adapt the process and the work allocation based on those new sources of data, new sources of insight, and that takes a level of maturity and adoption and stick-to-itiveness to be able to get through to get to that level of effectiveness. So it's one thing to have it, it's another thing to become effective with it, and then it's another thing to be able to differentiate based on it as well. And so we're at that stage where people are having it. There's much lower resistance to some of these things, but becoming effective with it and then be able to differentiate with that takes time. And so once again, the research and then the pandemic itself has been a nice catalyst for this. If once again, if we can ever say nice with regard to the world that we're living in today, but from a reality standpoint, it's really forced the service leaders to think about the future and can we accelerate certain elements of our digital transformation plan to be able to address some of the challenges associated with what's coming out of this pandemic today? And is that a path that's something that where it stays on our strategic path of where we want to go to as an organization? It's not just a knee-jerk reaction that we're going to spend a lot of money on and then ultimately have to kick it to the wayside once we kind of get through this and in full recovery, but rather this is something that is going to have longevity for where we want to go as an organization and also meets the market needs of what we have today. And there's been just a lot of innovative thinking that goes along with that in the marketplace. And one of the things that I guess keeps me incredibly optimistic about this sector itself is the level of innovation and adoption that we see going on here, and creative thinking about how do we meet the changing demands that we have on ourselves, both from a customer service standpoint and from an employee standpoint and from a process standpoint.